Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the FCJ briefing. Today's briefer is Professor Junji Nakagawa of the Institute of Social Science at the University of Tokyo. And the title is How Will Japan Change When It Joins the TPP? And today's briefing is conducted in English. And before we listen to what Professor Nakagawa has to say, don't forget to turn your cell phone to the silent mode. Thank you. Ready?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you so much for inviting me to talk about the TPP, a very hot issue, and to share my ideas with the distinguished audience. It's an honor to me. And the title, yes, of my talk is How Will Japan Change When It Joins the TPP? I've been conducting a bit of empirical survey of this on this trade agreement for the past couple of years. And today, I'd like to share the essence of my research result with you. Yes. So 5-part talk. What is a TPP, first of all? TPP is an acronym of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or more formally, Trans-Pacific Strategic Economic Partnership Agreement, or TPSEPA, or something like that. And this is a free trade agreement currently under negotiation among, in total, 11 countries of the Asia-Pacific region. And Japan, as you know, was admitted to join the TPP negotiation this April, and is expected to join the negotiation in the 18th round to be held in Malaysia in July. And besides these, in total 12 countries, several countries in the region have expressed their interest or intention to join the TPP. In South Korea, Thailand, the Philippines, and Taiwan, Laos, and Costa Rica and Colombia has expressed their intention. So this is a map. Sorry, I couldn't find any English version of the map, but maybe you can discern what this means. And I wrote a few, let's say, a chronology of the history of the TPP negotiation. It was originally, let's say, a rather minor or small free trade agreement, which was originally concluded by the 4 economies in the Asia Pacific, namely Chile, New Zealand, Singapore, and Brunei. And the original P4, it is called, agreement was concluded in 2005, and it entered into force in 2006. But the chapter on investment and financial services were lacking. And the follow-up negotiations were planned to be held in sometime in early 2008. But then the United States, the Bush administration expressed their intention to join the P4 talks. And then the whole, let's say, scene drastically changed with the intention of the U.S. Participation. And end of 2008, there was a presidential election in the United States, and the new incoming Obama administration took almost 1 year before deciding whether to succeed the Bush administration's intention to join the TPP talks. And they decided to join it, as you know. And so far, the enlarged or second stage TPP negotiations started in March 2010. So it is already 3 years and something. And so far, in total, 17 negotiating rounds were held. And the 17th round just has ended last weekend in Lima, Peru. And the 18th round will be held in Malaysia. And from 15th to 25th of July. And as the internal or domestic procedure of the United States for the admission of the Japan will be finished on 23rd of July. So Japan will join only maybe 2 day or 2 day and a half of the next round of the TPP negotiation. And that will be the 18th round. And the 19th round will be held in September. And October in Bali, Indonesia, there will be APEC summit meeting. And maybe the TPP ministers will announce the agreement on the outlines or broad outlines. And when will it be wrapped up? Still, TPP countries are saying that the end of this year is the target date for the conclusion of the TPP. But it is not clear whether it is the actual goal or not, because still, after 17th round of negotiation, there are several outstanding issues. In total, it's about 25. There are about 25 subject matters within the TPP, or maybe chapters. And all these chapters on intellectual property rights and environment and state-owned enterprises, which is contained in the competition policy chapter, and all types of market access negotiations. Goods market access, services liberalization, and investment market access, and government procurement market access. These are a kind of a liberalization negotiation will still continue. So it is not clear whether maybe on these outstanding issues with new membership the TPP negotiation will be wrapped up in 1 or 2 more rounds. It's not clear. And the Japan's late participation may some kind of delaying effect on the whole negotiation procedure. According to a comment by the former Chilean chief negotiator to the TPP, I quote, "A country of the size and importance of Japan will not be able to sign the TPP without having a chance to give some tuning so as to reflect its interest." But I'm not sure whether how large would such some tuning may be. I don't know exactly. At least a few more rounds will be concluded. We will need it before the TPP members will reach the final deal. So my guess is not end of this year, but maybe sometimes in before maybe summer of next year will be let's say realistic target date of the TPP negotiation. And I argue that TPP is very important. Why? There are 2 reasons. Number 1, it may evolve into the free trade area of the Asia Pacific, which within the APEC framework was intended to figure several years ago with the initiative of the United States And the TPP is the most, let's say, promising candidate for the framework for the FTA-AP. And second reason is that the contents of the TPP is it's intended to become a high standard and broad-based FTA, and it is intended to be the model of the 21st century FTA. And these two specific characteristics or the importance are clearly announced in the letter of the USTR Ron Kirk notifying the leaders of the Congress in December 2009, where in the letter Kirk clearly stated these two, let's say, objectives of the U.S. Intention to join the TPP. And behind these two objectives of the TPP, I'd like to point out the two, let's say, background elements for the importance of the TPP. The number one is the stalemate of the WTO's Doha negotiation, as you know. It's already almost 12 years old, but will have a very slim chance of a successful conclusion. And instead, many countries are now making negotiations of FTA or what it is called here in Japan, EPA negotiation. So these are the number of the FTAs or EPAs. It's skyrocketing now. And the TPP is one of the most, let's say, advanced one in terms of its content. And a second element justifying my argument that TPP is so important is that the change in the global business environment has occurred for the past several years, which is the globalization of supply chains or globalization of production networks, which had its origin in sometime in mid-1980s. But for the past decade, it has been accelerating. So many private sectors, companies, both United States or Japan or whatever, or maybe including China, are now trying to build supply chains or production networks on a global scale. And the important thing is that in order to secure the efficient and profitable global supply chain, you need several set of policy environments. And some of them can be provided by the WTO, because WTO provide trade liberalization and services trade liberalization and a bit of intellectual property protection. But these are not enough for the successful global supply chain, especially investment facilitation in liberalization and protection is important. Also, several components of the competition policy and law, especially regulating the behavior of state-owned enterprises, is a critical element for the efficient management of the global supply chains. And instead of WTO cannot cover all of these policy areas, but FTAs, especially TPP, can cover these wide range of policy areas needed for the globalization of supply chain. So this is kind of a bottom-up approach for the TPP. And for all these reasons, I argue that the TPP, with its high standard, broad-based 21st century kind of contents, would become a very important platform for the globalizing supply chain in the Asia Pacific. That's why I think this is a very important trade agreement. And here in Japan, there has been a hot debate on whether to join the TPP or not. The start was the October 2010 when the then Prime Minister Ken of the Democrat administration announced his intention to consider joining the TPP talks. So it was 2 years and 5 months ago, or 7 months ago. But it took Japanese government to 2 years and 5 months to finally decide its intention to join under the Abe administration, the TPP. It was March 2000 this year when the Abe administration announced its intention to officially join the TPP. And after a 1 month long, very intensive consultation with the TPP members, the TPP members formally approved Japan's participation in the TPP in late April. And yes, the USTR notified the Congress of Japan's participation on April 26th. And it will take 90 more days, according to their internal procedure, to formally approve the Japan's participation. And since then, since October 10, there have been a very, very heated debate as to whether Japan should join the TPP or not. And it's not unclear images, sorry about this. These are some of the very, very popular books. In the center, this is a book, this is saying that we should join it. And the left-hand one and the right-hand one was published by Japan Agricultural Cooperatives affiliated institution. And their argument is, of course, no. And the left side one is a book, the best-selling book on the TPP, which sells about 200,000 copies so far, written by currently the METI officials who happened to take a leave on to teach at Kyoto University then. And the title is that TPP will destroy or ruin this country, whether you believe it or not. But it was a very bestseller. And as you know, the most contentious issue here has been the liberalization of the agricultural products on which Japan has so far excluded from the tariff reduction commitments under any trade agreements, namely rice, wheat, beef and pork, and dairy products and sugar. And besides this agricultural product liberalization, another hot issue is the point raised by the Japan Medical Association, saying that the TPP might destroy Japan's public health insurance system. These are the two major issues for the hot debate surrounding the TPP. But it was, to me, it was so unfortunate that these debates on the TPP so far have not been based on objective or correct information on the exact content of the TPP. But yes, there is a very good reason for that, because the information on the TPP negotiation has never been disclosed to the public, according to the agreement among the TPP negotiators. They decided not to disclose any documents like draft text or something to the public, even to the congressmen, for instance. So without any, let's say, accurate information, you can argue anything, even though it is not likely. But it's a very, very unfortunate situation. But my method here was to gather information from publicly available sources, like the former FTAs by the United States. For instance, US-Korea FTA has been used as a kind of template for the TPP negotiation. There is a good reason to believe that. Or some of the chapters or texts were leaked to the mass media, and you can make access to them. And also the Japanese government, since October 2010, has been consulting the TPP countries and gathering information. And some of the information are uploaded on the government's website. TPP 交渉の分野別状況 in Japanese, for instance. And the Washington-based news reporter, like Inside U.S. Trade or International Trade Daily, has been reporting quite in detail, gathering information from insiders and lobbyists and so forth. So from all these information, my argument is that we can is fairly accurately prospect the content of the TPP. And we should argue whether the Japan should join the TPP or not, based on such objective kind of information. And here are my arguments, the impact of the TPP on Japan. And there are two types of impacts of the TPP. Number one is the direct impact of the TPP on Japan's domestic regulations or policies and so forth. And secondly, the impact of TPP, it can be indirect, where the TPP influences domestic policies and regulations of the other members of the TPP. And as a result, Japanese businesses may be influenced on such change in other TPP members' rules, regulations, and policies. And to exactly assess the impact of the TPP, you must compare the content of the TPP, each chapter and rules, and the rules and commitments which each TPP members has already assumed under the WTO or under their existing FTAs or EPAs. So these kind of the genuine TPP impact is the such let's say WTO plus and EPA plus or FTA plus portion of the TPP rules. This is my method. And here is the subject matter table. From this table, I excluded the institutional elements like dispute settlement or joint commission, something like that, of the TPP, because institutional elements may not have any direct impact on domestic rule policies or regulations of each TPP members. And so there are as many as still 16 subject matters. Number one is on market access. So goods market access, services, and investment and government procurements. So 4 subcategories are here. And on the second category, on border measures, rules of origin, trade facilitation, and trade remedies are included. But the most important point of the TPP is that the TPP deal with a broad range of domestic regulations, which is categorized on domestic regulations. I classify as many as 9 parts. And the next table is the outstanding issues of the TPP negotiations. I put it in red letters. These are the outstanding issues. In other words, on these red letters, Japan may or can negotiate or may make a little fine-tuning or something. But on black letters, maybe Japan will have to just accept the result of the negotiations so far. And the next table is my assessment of the TPP's impact on the direct impact on Japan's policy and regulations. And those with circles, like agriculture, trade in goods, market access negotiation, these are the parts where TPP has a substantive impact on Japan's policy or regulations. On agriculture, yes, we will have to, let's say, start eliminating tariffs on rice and other strategic or sensitive products. So it may have a substantive impact on Japanese agriculture. And on rules of origin, yes, TPP will elaborate a set of new rules of origin. So Japan might implement them according to the domestic tax or customs regulations. But the good point is that the rules of origin are the universal or are the common rules among the now 12 TPP members. So it may ease the traders, let's say, complicated rules of origin determination. So it may ease the spaghetti ball effect or something like that of the FTAs. It's not a bad news. It's my assessment. And on beef import ban, which is related with the SPS category, Japan has already eased its import ban against US beef in February this year, but it is still beyond the international standard. So in the course of the TPP negotiation, Japan may have to further abolish its import ban of US beef. And copyright terms, etc., intellectual property rights, it is said that US is trying to introduce a number of new, more stringent protection of intellectual property rights, both on substantive rules and enforcement matters. And it may have some influence on Japanese intellectual property rights. And on SOE regulation, state-owned enterprise regulation, as it is already reported, JP-affiliated financial institutions like Kampo, life insurance, and Yucho banks are allegedly distorting some fair competition in the market with foreign financial institutions. And Japan has already committed itself to modify this anti-distortive behavior. So it may have some impact on Japanese rules or regulations, but it has already been accepted by this government. And on environment, one point is that fisheries subsidies, U.S. is said to be trying to introduce a very, very stringent discipline on fisheries subsidies, which supports overfishing. And this was the story within the WTO Doha negotiation. And Doha negotiation, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan made an alliance against such proposal. But here, U.S. again raised that proposal. And this time, Japan has no allies because Korea and Taiwan has not yet. So this is, and also regulatory coherence, some kind of fine-tuning on the Japanese regulatory process may be introduced. So these are the areas where Japan has may have a kind of substantive impact from the TPP. But my overall assessment is that these kind of impacts, except maybe the agricultural tariff elimination and fisheries subsidies, the rest of the impact is generally a good impact for Japanese economy and political system, where if we intend to transform this economy and national system in a more efficient and transparent direction. And in that sense, my overall assessment is not so big impact. And in some impact, yes, there are some impact, but they are in general positive impact. But on the other hand, the TPP's indirect impact, which is the impact of the TPPs on the other members of the TPP members, may be far more substantive. On almost all subject matters, I put the circles. And these are, the TPP may have a huge, substantive impact on almost all negotiating subject matters of the TPP members, especially the ASEAN members of the TPP, which are Brunei and Malaysia and Vietnam. Because so far, these three countries have not assumed any WTO plus obligations under their FTAs or EPAs. So they, by joining the TPP, they will have to assume a number of additional rules or obligations, burdens by the TPP. And as a result of their impact, indirect impact, we can safely prospect that the business environment of these, mainly the ASEAN members of the TPP, will be far more substantively improved. And that would be a very good news for Japanese companies who are now expanding their supply chains to include these Vietnam or Brunei, Malaysia, and other countries in the Asia-Pacific region. So my assessment is that yes, Japan, Japan is a latecomer in the TPP negotiation. So it may be a little bit too late for Japan to substantively influence the final content of the TPP. But in light of the foreseeable impact, both direct and indirect impact of the TPP on Japan, it is not too late. And also, we may say it is, Japan is in time for the TPP negotiation. And the net result is positive, especially for Japanese businesses doing business abroad in the TPP region. That's my assessment. And finally, I'd like to say a few words on the Japanese trade strategy beyond the TPP. My let's say argument here is that the TPP rules may become a de facto global standard of the 21st century. There are two possible routes for that globalization of the TPP rules. Number one, TPP has an open accession clause, so new members can join the TPP. And as I explained, there are already several members of the Asia-Pacific region that have expressed their intention or interest in joining the TPP. So expanding the membership of the TPP will increase the TPP's importance. on the other hand, another route is the TPP may be referred to in the negotiation of other FTAs, notably the big FTAs. For instance, Japan is currently negotiating 3 other big FTAs. One is the ASEAN Plus 6 negotiation, and the other one is the Japan, Korea, China trilateral FTA. And finally, Japan is also negotiating an FTA with the EU. So these, and plus TPP. So these 4 negotiations are currently conducted in parallel. And Japan is in a position to lead the TPP diffusion by reference to the rules of the TPP in these 3 mega FTA negotiation. But finally, I'd like to argue that the ultimate goal of Japan's trade strategy for in the mid or to long term should be the revitalization of the WTO. In the beginning, I mentioned that the WTO Doha round has been stalemate. So Doha is almost dead. But the TPP or RCEP or other mega FTA cannot replace the WTO with 159 members now. So some of the, from the networks of the big mega FTAs, including TPP, some small countries will be excluded. And these small countries may, in these small countries, the poverty or in social insecurity will persist. And this exclusion may lead to the global instability or insecurity and maybe global unfairness. So Japan should take the lead in infusing the TPP rules into the WTO by making proposal for a new revitalized round of the WTO negotiation, maybe at a round which could be started in 2015, 16 or something. So this should be. I must admit this is a kind of wishful thinking. As a scholar of international economic law, and also as who has just published a small book on the WTO, I'd like to promote the importance of the WTO and also the relevance of the Japan's trade policy to link the TPP and the WTO. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Nakagawa. Now shall we go into the question and answer session, and we will receive questions from our press friends, and one question at a time, please. And would you please raise your hand, wait for a microphone, and please do not forget to identify yourself, and just wait for the microphone to arrive you. And okay, the lady first.
Elaine Kurtenbach, Associated Press. Thank you very much for your thorough description of the whole situation. You mentioned that this is very good news for companies that are doing business overseas. Do you see the focus, the support within Japan for the TPP as coming mainly from that motivation rather than from, say, internal reforms? I mean, some people are linking TPP with Kisei Kanwa and the so-called third arrow of Abenomics, and I'm kind of interested to see what your opinion is about that.
Yep.
And one other question is just about JA. I listened to Mr. Banzai give a quite long description of all the plans they have for how they're going to remake Japanese agriculture to cope with the new era of TPP. But I got the impression that really there's not really that much that's going to change, and I'm interested to hear what you think. Can they deliver on doubling income and tripling exports, for example?
Thanks so much for your questions. The impact of TPP on the internal regulatory reform of Japan, in my opinion, would be at best very limited. And why? Because Japan has already conducted a substantive amount of domestic regulatory reform, and TPP may push Japan to make a few additional reforms, but almost all of the contents of the TPP, which are relevant to Japanese domestic reform, has already been done. That is my impression. And also, I would say it is too optimistic for Japan that to expect that the TPP would attract foreign investors. And some of the politicians are saying that by opening the Japanese market to foreign investors, TPP would contribute to revitalize Japanese economies. But it is an exaggeration. And I checked the survey conducted regularly since, about 10 years ago by the JETRO. They questioned the foreign investors or why you don't invest in Japan. And the regulatory barriers has always been set at a lower level. The most strongest reason has been the cost of doing business here, including the rent and the salaries and so forth, and maybe the corporate tax rate is a little bit high. So the TPP is not a panacea. And when it comes to the inward foreign direct investment, TPP's impact for Japan, positive impact to Japan is very, very limited. That's my impression. And as for your second question, you referred to the JA's agricultural reform plan or the Japanese government's reform plan. Which one? All of them. All of them. I'm not an expert of agricultural economics, but the one good thing accompanied by the TPP is that Japan will most probably have to start cutting tariffs on the sensitive products, including rice and so forth. And the promise is written down in Japanese individual commitment or tariff schedules. And this as a result of the TPP negotiation. And this must be used as a kind of a time frame for the needed reform for Japanese agricultures. So maybe 7 years from the entry into force of the TPP, as a result of the substantial reduction in rice, maybe the new, rice will enter the Japanese market. At the initial stage, maybe the average tariff rate is so high that any competitors can enter the Japanese market. But maybe 7 years from now or 5 years from now, Japanese rice market will face real competition or something like that. So taking these tariff schedules as a kind of time frame for the agricultural reform, Japan should work out the really needed reform for revitalizing agriculture.
Okay. Rory-san.
Anthony Rowley, Singapore Business Times. Before I ask my question, can I ask you, do you intend to distribute your paper, which is really quite useful? Do you intend to distribute copies of that paper?
Yep.
You do?
Yep.
Very good. Okay. My question there is, doesn't it strike you as extraordinary that these negotiations are being conducted in an atmosphere of really secrecy, as far as the public is concerned? And do you think the negotiations could actually be wrapped up without the public being given a lot more information on what is going on? And the second part of the question is, you know, you've kind of implied that this TPP is a kind of gold standard or global standard for future. So doesn't that really mean that, you know, that in fact that it will have a tremendous influence on the future shape of the WTO itself? That if this really does become a global standard, that what is in effect an American-led initiative becomes a kind of quasi-global standard?
Secrecy is a kind of a stigma of the TPP negotiations. Everybody complains about that, especially you, as from the mass media, have a very good reason to complain about the secrecy because you can get any correct information on that. But yeah. But they, the negotiate or the governments, TPP governments, at the beginning of the negotiation, agreed not to disclose any information. The reason is, one possible reason is that for fear of, let's say, negative campaign from every side of the civil society against the TPP, because anti-TPP campaign or anti-neoliberal campaign has been very strong for the past 15 years or something like that, and they feared such repercussion, negative repercussion from the civil society. But on the other hand, I don't like the secrecy in trade negotiation. Generally speaking, Japanese government, unfortunately, has adopted a similar secrecy position. If you take a look at the, for instance, MOFA's website on specific EPA, so they reported that on which negotiation were held or something. But from that link, you can just draw the fact that negotiation was conducted. That's it. Nothing on substantive issues. So this is a kind of a typical, let's say, secrecy in economic diplomacy. But the WTO adopted a different approach. With the, after maybe 1-2 years consideration within the Secretariat, in 1997 or 6, the WTO Secretariat decided to disclose almost every document, and they uploaded on the website of the WTO. And so you can trace each country's argument on each and every topic of the Doha Development Agenda negotiation on the website. And I have never heard that openness has been the reason for the stalemate of the Doha. And maybe the openness may enhance democracy in trade decision making. And maybe, so I share with your worry or concern on secrecy. On gold standard WTO, the TPP would become, whether the TPP would become the gold standard or not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I agree with the USTR that the TPP is equipped with a few very innovative elements of trade regulation, which includes the SOE, state-owned enterprise discipline, and the regulatory coherence is a very innovative idea. And also on other item of the cross-cutting issues bracket, business facilitation and competitiveness, or small and medium enterprises, how to make a full use of the TPP for them. These kind of elements are very, very innovative, and in general, these should be the gold standard for the 21st century trade policy. And yes, USTR or US is a very, very, let's say, hegemonic power in the world. But one good thing for them is that they, yes, they make a very good proposal, which is persuasive, regardless of whether they are based on their very, very specific business, private interest or something. But they can diffuse and promote and diffuse several new ideas into the global rules. So trade-in services negotiation, for instance, the GATT was the one, and maybe the TPP would be the next one. So they have the soft power. And frankly, I respect them for that.
Okay, next question from the press. Okay.
Carsten Germes from Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung in Germany. You talked about, besides agricultural sector, the medical sector is one of the big, important, influential groups in Japan opposing the TPP. When you talked about the impact, you didn't mention any impact. So is there no impact for the medical sector? Or what could happen? Is it true that, I always read this in Japanese newspaper, the public healthcare system might be destroyed in this case?
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for your question. Public healthcare system has never been dealt with in trade negotiation whatsoever. And I checked the various FTA chapters on investment concluded by the US, Japan, and so forth. And they have one characteristic in common, that on any FTA or trade agreement, they do not touch on the social security related public insurance system. And healthcare system, or especially public healthcare system, is outside, outside, not within the reach of the trade negotiation, and I assure you. And also the USTR, Ms. Cutler of the United States Trade Representative officially admitted that that topic has never been discussed under the TPP. So this is one of the let's say, the disadvantages of secrecy of the negotiation. So you can say anything, even if there is nothing. But it's simply not true.
Okay, the next question. Okay, because the time is running, so let's close the session after we hear this question and answer.
Mark Sato with Market News International. In your opinion, what do you think China's going to do? How are they going to respond to this American-led negotiations, and how would you expect the world's two largest economies to cooperate or compete on these trade issues?
I had expected this kind of question, yes, before I came here, and so U.S. Has a dual objectives in TPP, right? I explained that. So number one is that TPP could become the free trade area of the Asia Pacific, including Russia and China. But at the same time, the second, U.S. has a second objectives in TPP, which is to make a very high standard, wide, broad-based 21st century model FTA. And as a result of the second objectives, TPP will become a very, very high standard FTA, and so that the China will find it very, very difficult to join as a new member. Maybe two or three aspects are salient. Number one is, of course, the discipline on the state-owned enterprises. And it's not clear the final wording or text of the TPP on SOEs is, but most probably they contain a general prohibition of regulatory preference or financial preference to the SOE. And they introduce a kind of dispute settlement procedure whether badly influenced private sector can sue the government. And finally, maybe they can attach a kind of a country-specific list of non-conforming SOEs. But in the case of China, there are too many SOEs, more than thousands of SOEs. So it is impracticable for them to list up all the SOE disciplines. So it is not, to me it seems that it is unrealistic that China will join the TPP within, let's say, several years time frame. But I also argue that TPP would become a golden rule or global rule via the WTO forum. And when you negotiate the SOE discipline on in the WTO forum, maybe you may think about the specific situation of market transition economies or LDCs where state-owned enterprise should be respected, justified. So by bringing the SOE discipline of the TPP from the TPP to the WTO, maybe you may find a more modest, a more, let's say, adjustable solution to that. And China, I hope that China may agree with such initiative if taken by this government.
Okay. So that's now we'd like to close the session, and thank you very much, Professor Nakagawa.
My pleasure. Thank you.